Thanks for coming, especially on a Friday night. I'm sure you have other things to do, but you don't have better things to do. You chose very well tonight. We have a couple of really interesting speakers, very different voices from what we've been hearing all along in sessions so far. Although we've heard Dixie a few times, this is going to be a chance for her to speak as an artist with her activist interests and commitments, and how that's influencing her work as a poet and an artist. And she'll share some work with us, both poetry and imagery. Yes, and I've seen the paintings. Some of them are here in the program, and others that you can Google her name, and you'll find lots of beautiful images to continue to enjoy. So she comes to us from Fresno. She's an acclaimed artist. She has shown her artwork. I was hoping that we would be able to bring actual paintings, and I think we will keep working on her until we can have a show of hers, because it's really great stuff. And I can't imagine seeing it in the flesh. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dixie Salazar.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Thanks so much for coming out. I don't know how many of you have been here the whole week, the whole time. Any others? Oh yeah, I remember you. Yeah, I've been here all day yesterday and today, and it's been fabulous. Thank you, James, for so much for putting this together. I've learned a lot over the weekend, and I'm going to read a poem in a minute here that's called Connect the Dots, and I feel like that's what's going on here. We're connecting all the dots up. I'm also going to show a PowerPoint presentation about the Eco Garden, which is the homeless shelter that I'm involved with. And I thought I would open with a poem. I'm a poet. I have actually some books of fiction, and a photographer and a painter. And I taught for a number of years at Fresno State, and then retired about 7 years ago. And I did a pretty good job of juggling my own personal work, my writing and my artwork, with school at that time. And now I'm having a terrible time trying to juggle with all my activist work that I've been doing, because working with the homeless is very challenging. My husband worked for social services for many years, and he used to tell me, he said that working with the homeless is the hardest job. Nobody in social services wants to do it. They do it for a while and they get burnt out, and they decide it's too hard. They can't do it anymore. So I'm going to start with this poem called Open Your Eyes. And I think I hope it's apt it's sort of a metaphor for a lot of the things that you're experiencing tonight and over the past couple of days. But it also refers to the homeless, because I know in Fresno, and I heard this from other people today at the panel, that one of the problems is that people don't see the homeless, and they don't want to see them, or when they do see them, it upsets them. They don't like it. They don't like seeing the homeless. They want somebody to make them disappear, is what they want. Open your eyes. I found a whole apple pie in the dumpster, took it back to share with one of my moms and the rest of the camp. Then I walked through the early evening smoke where dust and smog scribbled the sky a fiery rose, and muddy canal waters gathered reds and pinks and spread them out in watery scarves. From behind the silos, stray gulls rose and winged into a sunset that opened wide to darker and deeper purple reds that just screamed louder and louder. Look at this wealth of colors spread over the cracked earth, open wider and wider to streak skies, fall down to the soft earth, to praise the sun dropping over the rim of the world and breathe in the fire, no matter how many curses the man behind Food Max screamed after you, no matter how many signs the city has posted evicting you from your absence of a home. There are some things that cannot be found on eBay, appraised, amortized, stolen, or seized. by men in orange vests when they come to bulldoze our beds and inventory our weary forks and spoons, to store them in bins with the rats and maggots. Some things are right and true and cannot be sullied by words dressed up in official seals, the simple joys that don't break down in either the grind of use or neglect. My second mom and I came to this, sharing pie with Chewy and Wayne in a patched tent beside a canal open to the raggedy wind. If you don't believe me, open your eyes and see dark shapes moving through the shadows, pushing everything they own from one corner of the city to another, hidden from nothing, not even eyes that attempt to hide. Open your eyes and also that parched, dry place where you pledge allegiance to money and pat your wallet for reassurance. Open your eyes to a skinny bird stripping a carcass quietly in a parking lot as the sun drips down, sharing what's left of its meager light into clumps of ailanthus, the tree of heaven, that some would say are not even trees. You've seen those ailanthus. Every time there's a big place where nothing's growing there, it's full of those. They look like weeds, but they're really, apparently they are, I'm told they're trees. And that's meant to be a metaphor at the end related to the homeless. I'll read one more and then I'm going to talk about the eco garden. Connect the dots. Today I saw a man dark as asphalt, skin shiny as a nugget of coal, pushing a shopping cart down Echo, a cart loaded 2 feet above the rim, topped by a plum-stained log cabin quilt, hand-stitched. The cart rattled and groaned with most likely all he owned. Heat waves crashed around him, air surf making visible the 100+ heat that drowned him and thickened the air he pushed his worldly goods against, headed for his cardboard crib. Papered with coloring book pages of connect the dots, from broken baby rattle to hand-me-down dump truck, from stinging belt buckle to slamming backyard gate, to gavel smack down on unforgiving oak, to pink slips, eviction notices, and final decrees, to cardboard windows and doors, to the slow unraveling inside him, leaving his core hollow in a night filled with echoes that bump, rattle, and disappear, swallowed in connect the dot stars and a pale scribbled over moon. Let's see. Well, this is the Dakota Eco Garden, and I've been involved in this project, it's related to the Eco Village project. There are two entities. The Eco Village project is the 501c3, the umbrella organization, and I'm on both boards actually. And the Eco Village project is a project by Art Dyson, a local architect, very renowned. And I'm going to show you, I'll talk just briefly about that at the end. We're trying to get money for land to start that project. It has only started as a prototype on the property of the Dakota Eco Garden, which I'm going to go to right now. Let's see. Okay, this is the H Street encampment. This is where the first place that, this is downtown Fresno, and this is a good example of what it looked like. And this is before they bulldozed everything. It's bulldozed now completely because the city now does not have, they have bulldozed all the encampments around town. And I don't know how many people were there, at least 200 or 300 at one point. They're down there because Poverello House, the main service organization where homeless people can go and get food, the 3 hot meals a day, they can get showers and wash clothes and get basic services there, is nearby. And so there's also the mission, which is around that same area. So they kind of have to hang out here. And obviously they don't have, a lot of them don't have transportation. It's hard for them to get around. So they need to be close to their services. And this is one of the bulldozings that took place on H Street. The Eco-Village project of Fresno, headed by Art Dyson, is working to create dignified and uplifting transitional housing for the homeless of Fresno. This is our board. We were a small board, most of us retired. Well, actually about half of us retired, I should say. In July of 2012, Nancy Waitlow, with her own funds, bought a piece of property on West Dakota in Fresno to start a demonstration project for housing the homeless. The Eco-Village project joined forces with Nancy in 2013 and built the first Art Dyson prototype there. This is the house before, wait a minute, let me see here. There, that's the house in the first stage, when she first bought it. And, I had been on quite a few, I had started out getting involved with the homeless because I was working on a film project with a friend. We were going out to the encampments and taking photographs, and she was filming, and I got a lot of what I thought were exciting photos because visually it was a dream. It was just everything. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. It's my idea of beauty, though, not everybody's. But I ended up having a show at City Hall, and then I felt like, well, I got a really nice art project out of this. I should give back. I took something, I should give back. So I got involved in a lot of homeless groups, and we had a lot of meetings, and we met. This went on for a number of years, and I began to feel like a lot of these meetings we were criticizing the city for not doing anything, and then I began to feel like that, well, we're not doing anything either, and that was really disturbing me. So when Nancy decided to buy this house and start this project, I jumped on board immediately because I felt like this is something I could really, you could really do something and make a difference. Oops, wrong way. This is the house. It's pretty close to its current state. It's been refurbished. Had a lot of things wrong with it, including asbestos. This is the living room, and there's one of my paintings on the wall in there. I now have all my homeless paintings located in there. It's a good place to store them. This is Jeff, one of our residents, and Jeff is a mechanical, and he's a genius. He's very good at anything mechanical or technical, and he created, he set up two pairs, for each of the two tents, he set up a solar panel, so that he just by salvage materials that he got, and the solar panels will charge with is connected to a 12-volt battery, and it charges lights and radio, and I think they can even charge a cell phone for each of the tents out in the back. He also wired the house for Wi-Fi and all the way back to the end of the property, which is about, I think, I've been told 7/10 of an acre, something like that. And Jeff is now working on a project using hydroponics to grow vegetables throughout the winter. This is the garden. Oh, did I go the wrong way? Whoops. Okay. Oh, this is the start of the garden. This is the area where we have an organic garden. Oh, here we are. The garden. This is some of the early workers at a work party in the garden. And this is the raised beds they built, growing all kinds. This strawberries right there, and they grow all kinds of things: chard and kale and everything basically. And the idea was to hopefully maybe at some point help sustain the house. So far, we've been able to give a lot of vegetables away. Of course, the residents use the vegetables to, feed themselves, and we haven't really been able to set up anything to sell them yet. And this is some of the first residents at the house. There's Brittany let's see if I can do this. This is Brittany. She is one of the first residents there, and she has since gone on, she was there about 1.5 years, I think, and she's gone on to get her counseling degree in drug rehab and at City College, and she also got custody of her son back, and she's on our board now, and she's doing fantastic. She's really, really capable, very energetic person, and really glad to have her. And That's Gerardo. He was one of the first residents. This is Beverly, another resident who is still there. Beverly had an extremely abusive background, and I knew something was wrong because she just had a terrible affect. And at we have potlucks every month. We used to, and now we've gone to 2 or 3 months. But the idea was that at the end of the month, people run out of food because their food stamps run out and so on. So we had people come to bring food to help us get through the month. But we had a lot of people showing up who would eat and didn't bring any food. So we've had to go to 2 or 3 months. But anyway, one of those, I saw Beverly, and I looked at her face, and I just knew something was terribly wrong with her. Took her into one of the bedrooms and closed the door, and I said, Beverly, what's going on? And it just poured out of her. She was just waiting for somebody to ask because it turned out she had a terribly abusive background. And so I got her into some camp therapy. I got her with a therapist, and I started doing art therapy with her. Been working with her for about 6-8 months now. And she's now going to, she's taking exercise classes, she's going to school, in adult school, and she's taking computer classes. And I'm hoping that she will go ahead and go back to college, because she all through her growing up years, she told me that she was in special ed. And I really don't think she should have been. I know she's very quiet, she's very withdrawn, and I think they saw this, kid that just kind of got shuffled away, put her in special ed and left her there. And her family was not only not supportive, they were part of the problem. And then the other 2 residents have now, unfortunately, Brad, who did a lot of work around the house and helped us build a lot of things, has passed away about 6 months ago. And this Bill, he's gone on and moved to another town and with family. We've had, I think, about a 80 to 85%, maybe even higher. We're not, running statistics or anything, but success rate with the people who've come through our program. I'm calling it a program, which is loosely defined, because we're all self-supporting. We don't take any funds from any government entities, and we don't really have an income. The 2-story house is it has 2 bedrooms upstairs, and the idea originally was that those could be rented out and help pay to run the house. But a lot of times the people who move in there, they don't have the money, and then Nancy lets them go. She's the owner of the property, and she lets them go, and then they don't. Sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't. So it's not a steady income. That's okay. This is what the property looks like with there's the 2 upstairs bedrooms, which are most of the time occupied, and the downstairs bedroom is occupied by one of the residents who has been there from the beginning, and she is our house director, manager, I guess. And then these are the tents in the backyard, and I'll show you one in a second here. I think there's about 8 of them right now. Whoops, went too fast. You can see how we put one tent inside of another. That's kind of to add warmth, and then there's sometimes a tarp on top of that, because it gets pretty cold in the winter out there. Oh, and also you can see whoops, I'm going too fast. The solar, there's one example of the solar that Jeff rigged up for the tents. And that's Beverly with her tent. And we built that I didn't have any building to do it. Jerry built the fence around there so that she could keep her dog in there. We allow the residents to have pets, and we try to have as few rules as possible. I mentioned earlier today that we've kind of been learning to fly the plane in the air. None of us had experience doing any of this, and Nancy bought the house, and we just decided to do it. We just jumped in, and they went and visited a place in Santa Cruz and talked to them. I can't remember the name of that place. Anyway, it's a really good example of a homeless village, sort of, that they've put together there. And they said, just go for it, just do it. Don't, we didn't know what we were doing when we started out either. So it's evolving, and we're still learning, and we're still making changes. This is Art Dyson's conceptual sketch of the eco-shelter prototype. And the eco-shelter is meant to be well, let me read you just real quickly a little bit about it. The Eco Village project began as the brainchild of celebrated architect Art Dyson. Can't read my own writing. His idea was to create green, sustainable eco-housing that would provide the homeless with an uplifting, dignified, harmonious, and aesthetically pleasing living environment. The original concept involved creating communities of people with similar skills living and working together. So there's supposed to be some meandering. This would be like probably about 10 to 15 of these type dwellings in one area with green landscaping, arboreal, organic garden, personal garden spaces around each individual unit, and to promote a healthy, peaceful, enriching environment. Each dwelling is 110 square feet. That's because that's the largest a unit can be according to zoning for the city from detached from the house. And with geothermal, convection cooling, and solar heating. And I think, let's see, in one of these, that's the first building of it. This is the finished product. You can see the solar chimney on top there. And I can't really explain how it works, but there's some, in the front window, there's milk bottles that are filled with water, and they're supposed to heat up in the wintertime. And then the solar chimney is supposed to bring circulate air, and I can't explain how it works, but that's still evolving also. It's a work in progress. The philosophy behind the Eco Village project, though, rests on the belief that in order to achieve lasting change, individuals must undergo a transformation within themselves. And that's what I've seen at the, this is the new prototype. That's what I've seen at the Eco Garden with our residents. It's been wonderful to be a part of that and to see people changing their lives. And I know as I listened to the people talking earlier today, it's so true that they can't do it on their own. They just can't. They're going to need help. I can't imagine, even if each one of these people have come through our program or given $10,000, let's say, you just handed it to them and said, okay, go out and find a place, or put the money down in an apartment and, start your life over. A lot of them couldn't do it because there's too many roadblocks. They became homeless for many reasons, not just one. And in order to address all those things, you have to address multiple things, and it's almost like, okay, what do I address first? And you just have to, but first of all, people have to be in some kind of housing in order to address issues like drugs and alcohol, and we do have those issues. It's not like we don't. We don't allow drugs or alcohol on the property. That's one of our few rules. And the other thing that is just respect. Respect covers a wide swath. And we demand that. That's one of the things that one of our basic rules. But we try to get people into drugs and alcohol programs. We haven't had, most of the time they're already in recovery when they come to us. We drug test them before they can come in, mainly because we're trying to rule out meth. Meth is bad news, and you just really can't deal with people with meth. It's too unpredictable. And so that's our main consideration there. And we also do a background check to rule out for sexual problems and things like that. This is the new prototype that we're trying to, and by the way, that nobody likes that green color. We're not going to use that color. But it's supposed to be made out of bamboo, and this is Art's design, and he's just trying this out. It's supposed to be formed over the bamboo, but then be covered with, I'm not even sure what he plans to use. He talked about using even plastic bags, formed plastic bags, and Art is a visionary. He has all kinds of really cool ideas, but they haven't all been tested and tried out yet. I think this might be the end. There's the house in front, and that's Nancy H., who is our program manager. She was one of the people who was at the encampment out by the silos. The poem that I read when I started out was where she was at that place with another woman named Cinnamon. Cinnamon's an interesting character. She couldn't come to the Dakota Eco Garden because she had 3 dogs, and it's just way too much for us to handle. And they're also big, mean dogs that only she controls them. And for a while, Cinnamon was living across the street from me. She was living in someone's backyard. And I'm not going to go into a long story of how she got there. But when I found out she was there, I tried to help her. I found out she's Native American and she can qualify for Indian Health Services. So I had her and she had been there before. She does have mental health issues, and so I was trying to get her into some mental health services. And unfortunately, we had 3 appointments set up, and each time something happened. And this is kind of one of the problems working with the homeless population is that it's very hard. They lose their cell phones. They're living on the streets, and their lives are all just turned upside down all the time. And also in Fresno, there's 4 policemen on the homeless task force that's their job, is to go around the city and basically harass the homeless because they don't want them any more of the encampments springing up. The city, we have made several presentations to the city about our ideas for the Eco Village project, and we've shown them examples from other cities around the country, things that have been done in other places, and we were told directly that they're not interested in anything like that, and they really have not been good at working with. There's a lot of agencies in Fresno who are doing a lot of good things and who would be happy to work with the city, and they refuse to work with us. So the mayor has pretty much said no safe and legal campgrounds, and no transitional housing, no emergency shelters. And as anybody who works in this field knows, that's kind of right now those are the kinds of things that cities who implement those, that's what's working. And that's what's saving cities lots and lots of money. So, let's see, I'm going to show you, well, actually, I'll read this poem from my book, Altar for Escaped Voices. It's, there's several parts in here. One had to do with my work in the prisons, which I used to do years ago. I was an outside contractor who worked for Arts and Corrections, and I taught writing and visual arts to the inmates at Corcoran State Prison for men and at Valley State Prison for women, and also Central California Women's Facility, both in Chowchilla. And then I also did a parenting class at the jail and a few other things. But so there's a section in here about inmate poems, and I tried to write in the voices of the inmates. And then I also tried writing in the voices of the homeless, which was the first poem that I read, was in the voice of Cinnamon. I don't know if I finished the story about Cinnamon, but she's disappeared, and we don't know where she is right now. I worry about her all the time. This is called Altar for the Altarless. And this is not in the voice of a homeless person. There's a quote: "The homeless people that live here are the luckiest homeless in Fresno. They have maid service. We come out and clean up for them about every other week." End of quote. That's from Police Officer Ray Wallace. And this is the poem. "The things they lost in the cleanup: false teeth, bicycle, sleeping bags, laptop computer, new shoes, blankets, insulin, family photos, Paxil, dog food, heart medication, jewelry, small TV, sleeping bags, birth certificates, hand weights, toolbox, inhaler, love letters, tent with baby kittens inside, social security card, shampoo, military discharge papers, service medals, birth control pills, doghouse, urn with granddaughter's ashes." And I think okay, you want to go ahead and put the slides up? I'm going to show you some slides from the encampments where I took some photos. And this is the first one. This was in the show at City Hall. And I mean, I was just enamored with there's just visually, it was a feast to me. And as you can see, the irony is there's a lock on that door there. It was incredible, though, to me how people cobbled together these dwellings with found objects, whatever, all kinds of things they could find. And then they put locks on them, and those were their houses. Inside, they would have all kinds of things. And now, of course, everybody has to keep their stuff in a shopping cart and push it around the city all day long. They can't stop anywhere. And the newest problem is that it's hard for them to go into a Poverello house and get their services, because if they leave their carts in front, like they used to do, now the cops, the homeless task force comes along and they will confiscate and take the carts. Whoops. I love the signage here. I don't know if you can see it. This is not yours. Get your own. Do not touch. Some amazing signage out there. I never found out what was underneath those tarps either, what was so valuable. I don't know if you can see this one either. It says, Once Upon a Dream, and it's right beside the shopping cart and all the tarps hanging around. A lot of people decorate their houses. It's their home, and they decorate them. And I'll show you a couple in a minute here that I thought were quite remarkable. Whoops. This one I think I'm touching something that I don't, okay. This was on the cover of my book. I really like that one. It looks like an altar to me, and there were a lot of examples of this. People would just kind of put things together that they found, and then it had the feel of an altar. And it looks like it marks something really important. Another one that has that kind of, and with, of course, the razor wire weaving throughout. And this guy, a lot of times people wouldn't invite us inside their houses, or, their dwellings. And my friend and I who went out to take these photographs, we had a guide who went with us, and I'll show you at the end. There's a picture of her. Her name was Cynthia. She wasn't very tall, maybe about 4'10", but she was fierce, and everybody knew her out there. And then nobody messed with Cynthia, and so she was our guide, and she took us around. We couldn't have really done this without her. And we went. This guy, he was very proud of his space. And I think he's done quite a nice job with the decor, with the color. He's got a color scheme going, and it's interesting that I love the mirrors there, and how they picked up the stripes and the different shapes along that side. Let me see, right along there. We discovered after we started working with Teresa's film that there was a rifle along there, which. We hadn't seen it first. And also, the thing you're not seeing is, just on the other side of that red is a wall of porno. You're still very proud of that space. Whoops. Another space that I thought was quite interesting, and, it was very neat, very clean, very well kept. And just little touches like this that fascinated me. They would decorate for the holidays, too. This maybe was Halloween. I don't know. I love this. Okay, am I going too fast here? What am I? There. Okay, this one, I love the motif of the the poker hand on there, and then the playing cards all up and down that kind of frame that. Now, why does that not want to stay there? There. I just really like the shapes of this, the circle and the squares and and all the different shapes. And this one was right around December. I went out from October through January taking photos, and so I went through all the holidays. And, they had
right on the other side of that Christmas tree is an area that was pretty bad drug area that we weren't really supposed to go into, we were told. And it does bring up the issue of drugs. And yes, there are homeless people who are drug addicts and alcoholics, it's true. But it's not the typical picture. I think that's unfortunately, the negative image, that stereotype that people carry about the homeless. And what I like to say is that if you just think about your own families, your own friends, people that you know, how many of those families and friends have people who, can they say they have nobody or don't know anyone who has substance abuse issues? I would venture to say not. And in the general population, it's out there, everywhere. So why wouldn't we expect it to be in the homeless population? This is a very ingenious kind of setup, and also the playhouses, a lot of them, I see a lot of playhouses that they've taken and moved, use them as part of their dwelling. They usually add something to it or make it a part of something else. And the American flag, tons of flags everywhere. Everybody had the flag up there, which to me was pretty ironic. And I was trying to get on that one. There, another view of that one. Notice it's on wheels also. Some of the signage I thought was amazing. Third world bitch. And that one says, homeless, need help, and God bless. And then I love the pretty nice shades there on the playhouse windows. And this woman, I love her sign. The mayor is a fake. But she spelled mayor, M-A-Y-E-R. But still, I like the message. It's pretty. She's right on. And this picture had, for me, all the elements were there. The barbecuer, the American flag, the blue tarps, which were all over their encampments. And then there she is with the sign. And what does this one say? No citizen left behind. A takeoff on No Child Left Behind. Mervyn's going out of business, which I thought was kind of ironic with the looks like the battered mannequin there. This is the church. There was a Reverend Pastor Ray has a church underneath the freeway and an overpass downtown, and he would go out. He held church every weekend, every Sunday. He had church under the overpass there, and he had all the homeless people would come to him. Well, not all of them, but I mean, that's where they went to church, and he had services there, and he also would get food and distribute food to them, and it was his ministry, was serving the homeless. He had been homeless himself, and he still was when he was doing this, and of course the city decided that they had to do something about this. They had to take it out. And so they did. They ended up destroying the whole thing. It's funny though. This whole overpass area had been there for, 20 years with nothing there. It's just abandoned, part of the freeway that they stopped working on, or they closed it off for some reason. And it was fine. No people were walking under there and going back and forth, and it was nobody questioned the safety of this. And all of a sudden, when he set his church up in there, all of a sudden they decided it wasn't safe to be there, and they had to take it out. Some more pictures from Pastor Roy's church, and some signs here, which I thought was, he has some Bible verses there, and then in the center is one of those eviction notices from the city. I'm a soldier in the Army of the Lord. Thank you. With the two dogs in the background there. This is part of Pastor Ray's church. And this is the homeless memorial area that he set up right under the freeway underpass. And I don't know who kept track of this or who actually did. I think Pastor Ray had something to do with it. And all the homeless people who would pass away, they would set up a little stone for them there. And that also got destroyed. Another shot of that. And then I took some smaller shots of these in remembrance of Baby Doll, in remembrance of Kentucky Dave, in remembrance of Hustle. That's my favorite. This is Big Sue. And her sign says, "What do you feel?" This was right about the time when they were doing all the demolitions and taking everything out around the encampments. And Big Sue was well known in the homeless community. She helped people a lot. She would take people under her wings and help them out, particularly women. She helped set up the Holy Cross Center for Women that was adjacent to the Poverello House. And she did a lot of really good things, but she had her demons. And she wasn't doing so well in this picture. When you saw Sue, you could tell by looking at her how she was doing. But right about not long after this, they bulldozed an area that she had been living in, and her place was removed and destroyed, and she died on the streets of exposure to the cold on the sidewalk in front of the Poverello House. It was a terrible tragedy. And this is a memorial that was set up in front of Poverello House for her. And this is her funeral that they held, the service right at Pastor Ray's church under the overpass, or the underpass. And there was one more shot I wanted to get. Let's see. Well, I guess that's it. Thought I had one more. I had a little section over here, the homeless pets. This is, if you look in the center, there's a chicken there, which the chicken doesn't look too good. It needs some help. I don't even want to know what they had that chicken. I don't know whether they were raising it for food or it was a pet or what. But I think he was homeless. There's another shot of the chicken. Is it a turkey? I'm sorry, I stand corrected. Obviously, I'm not very knowledgeable about that. Whoops. And what am I doing wrong here? Anybody know? I want that one. I love the shot of the dinosaurs laying on their backs and the dog, which looks like, I guess, a pit bull, and guarding the playhouse. One of my favorite photos. And this one also, the cat in the little bar of sunlight, and with the bicycle wheel on the side, and that's one of my favorites. This was a guy who was just laying out on the sidewalk in front of the mission at one point. I talked earlier today about the mission. It's a faith-based organization in Fresno that I have to say they don't have a very good profile with the homeless community. Homeless people don't want to go to the mission because they have to, in order to get food or anything, any services there, anything at all, they have to pray, they have to admit that, they have to buy the whole program. And they have had a lot of, the people I've seen who've gone through their program there, they call them disciples. And the people I've had experience with, I was not impressed with them because they talk the talk and they'll say all the things that you want to hear. But the one guy who came to live with us, he was Brittany, the girl I showed you earlier. He was her boyfriend, and he was being abusive to her, and he's the only person we ever had to kick out. He had gone through their program. And I tried not to take people very often because it was very hard for me to take pictures of people. And, I felt like I should ask permission, and a lot of times they didn't want to give permission. Sometimes they might have been undocumented, and there might have even had, have outstanding warrants or something. You never know. And a lot of times they just didn't like the idea of having not people knowing that they're homeless. This woman she called herself Mother Nature. And you can barely see her there. She's under all that pile of quilts there. And they were taking out her home that day. That's her goods piled around her. And it was really nice for me today when I talked to the gentleman at the talk earlier today. What was his name? Vernon, yeah. Vernon told me, I asked him, I said, because he was part of that whole demolition, and then following the lawsuit that took place, the homeless sued the city for $2.3 million. And I asked Vernon, I said, do you know, Vernon, what happened to Mother Nature? And he said, she's okay, she's still alive, and she's got a place. She moved out of town. So I was really happy to hear that. This is Patch. He ended up becoming a part of the Occupy Fresno, and they had that going on for a while. And through that, he became rather involved in the activist organizations in Fresno. And I think he's housed right now, and I think but he is becoming very outspoken, a good spokesperson for the homeless. And I don't really know who this woman is, one of the people who allowed me to take her photo. This woman was kind of interesting. She invited me into her space. She was very proud of it, showed it off, and I'll show you this next one. Clothes for remodel. And I love this picture of her in the mirror with all the, of course, the flag and the different things around it. These guys also gave me permission to take their pictures because they wanted a job. They asked me if I knew of any jobs, and they said they were carpenters and they had skills, and unfortunately I didn't. It's one of the hard things of going out there. You see people who, they want help. They want, and you don't always have help to give them. This is Cynthia, the woman I was talking about earlier. Interesting story. I'll just tell real briefly that, let's see what time we have here. Am I okay on time? Okay. Cynthia, we bought a house downtown Fresno. The idea was to open up a homeless drop-in center. This was her dream. And she's the one who took us around and was our guide. And when we bought this property, a bunch of us pooled our money and put money into it. And then Cynthia moved in there, and she was going to take care of things and run the house for us. She had 2 pit bulls that lived on the property, and it turned out that we didn't know everything we needed to know about Cynthia. She had some leftover issues that we weren't aware of, and suddenly we were hearing reports of drug use in the house and prostitution and all kinds of things, and we didn't know what to do because we didn't want to evict her and put her on the street. And we were this went on for quite a long time. And so it was a dilemma for us, and the only thing we decided was Cynthia wanted to buy the house. And a long story short, we ended up, some people loaned her money, she got a settlement, she got some Social Security money, I think, and she ended up, also one of our board members signed the note for her to get this house, and she pays him monthly, and then he puts that money back into the Dakota house, which helps us keep going. But anyway, the thing about Cynthia is when I first met her, she told me, she said, I don't think I could live in a house ever. She says, I've been on the street so long, I used to hop the freight rails, and I used to, was how I lived, and I'm too claustrophobic, I couldn't live in a house. Well, after she got in the house there on Calaveras, where our house, where we were going to turn into a drop-in center, that was it. We couldn't get her out. So it's interesting to me because people are always saying, oh yeah, the homeless want to be homeless. They choose that lifestyle, they prefer it, and I haven't met one yet that was true of. And when they're given the opportunity for housing, they take it. And I have some thoughts about that. My own thinking is that I think it gives them a little bit more dignity to say, I'm choosing this, I'm not a victim of it. It makes them feel less like a victim, it makes them feel like they're a little bit more in control. And it's not quite so stigmatizing to say, yeah, I chose this, I like it, but I've come to distrust that. I think that's the last photo, maybe there's one more. But I like the idea she was by the train there. Oh, this is, this one is, there's shopping carts lined up to go into the Pavarello house. This was before when they were able to do that. And behind that is a $11 million housing project that the city built for homeless people, and it housed 69 people, $11 million, 69 people, do the math. And interestingly enough, the developer, who's the CEO, who is part of this whole project, has contributed a lot of money to the mayor's campaign. I'll just let you figure that one out too. Well, I wanted to end with a poem or two. Do I have enough time to do that? Okay. This one is called Hope, and it's really hard to find hope. And I often, when I started doing this work, I thought, how do you keep from just being hopeless all the time? And I think part of what the poem is, I'm getting at in the poem is, I think one of the things that keeps people going sometimes is anger. If you think about it, anger is quite a motivator, and it keeps you from feeling helpless. If you're angry, you're not helpless. That's an emotion that you can always get a hold of, too, and there's plenty of things to make you angry on the streets. And sometimes that's all you've got. Hope, for Phil Levine, who always gave us hope. In the alley of weeds and puncture vines, a hole in the fence slat opens to a vista of more weeds and earth sucked dry of moisture and nourishment. A lone tomato vine struggles to lift the just opened eyes of wet stars, seeking the sun's blessing and quiet miracle of touch from a woman crusted with layers of dirt, sun-baked, much like the same earth she plows with her broken spoon. Every morning and night she pours water from a Bud Light and clears away goat grass, stinkweed, and spurge, while Eve and Little Bit guard her stuff back at the encampment. Hope is not a place she visits often now, not since the news arrived secondhand, the worst a mother can imagine. And then, spotlights at night, jerking them from sleep, their blankets, sleeping bags stripped away, leading them to gather warmth from whatever stray body they can press against, leaving them to curse the stars that claw through filthy clouds, offering them not even one spare wish to shine in a gutter, to toss in a dark canal and sink with the muddy moon. Not even a wish so small it could slip through a razor blade's eye or the spaces of static on the cop's radio when he returns 2 hours later to bark another warning, to move on. Not seeing the finger she shows his back, or the Bud Light she smashes against the fence, hard boil inside, all she has left. It has to be enough, she thinks, watching the stars of glass burst like fireworks in the night. Hugging herself for warmth, there's plenty more, always plenty more for morning, to empty and refill with water or strafe the burial grounds of wishbones and fallen stars. And I'm going to end with this poem. I just wrote it not too long ago. I know some of my friends have been complaining about the homeless getting into their trash cans. And these are people who I feel like were, fairly progressive. And she was asking me about, I was talking about the Dakota House, and she started off on how, and I do get it. I understand that because, yes, it is upsetting when, they go through your trash and they leave a mess there. But unfortunately, most of them, people say they don't work, and that's not true. Cynthia told me she would recycle all night long. That was her job, and then she had to sleep in the daytime. Night music. At night, shopping carts come out with the moon, click, clack, rattle and clang, a chain gang of carts bumping over the tracks. Lights wink up and down the street like fireflies dipping into broken glass. When the moon rocks alone in the night, the stars wink out one by one, making a music heard only by those covered in fish scales, who shake marbles in rusted tin cans, dig through burnt-out light bulbs, smashed aluminum, ham bones, and tossed eggshells, crowding around open bins, sparring for copper and tin, while Bone Thugs, 96 Tears, and Maybe This Is Home fade into the night with the bent wail of a train's lost breath. Thank you very much. Oh, just one quick note. I have some flyers down here on at the stage. If anybody would like to get a flyer for the Eco Village Project or the Dakota House, they're down here. You can pick them up, I guess, at the end of the... Oh, questions. Okay, sure. Yes. Somebody had their hand up. Was that a... I'm sorry, what's that? Oh, really? Thank you for telling me that. I didn't know that. Yeah, I think that's true. That is signal for distress, right? There's lots of visuals out there. Any other questions? Yes, James.
How does the city of Fresno feel about the tents in your backyard?
Oh, good question, yeah. We've been worried about that all along, and they didn't know about them for first. You know, they're kind of behind the main house, so they're not really visible. And we had a big grand opening, and we invited people, and one of the new city council person came, and so we were on the front page of the Bee, and suddenly we had all this publicity, and so then we got some city people came out, and they didn't like the tents. They didn't want them there. They also did not want to say to us to take them down, because we're getting now clients coming to us from several different agencies in Fresno, because when the Evangel home, which for women, they can only be there a certain period of time. When their time is up, they have to leave, and they have nowhere to go. They're back on the streets. So we've been getting a lot of their clients. So I think we have a high enough profile in helping people now that they don't want to just come out and tell us to take them out, but it's kind of like a don't ask, don't tell situation right now. But we are worried at any point they could come out and tell us to, we have to shut those down. And if we did, we wouldn't really be able to do what we're doing any longer. Any other questions?
Just one more. Now, you said the city of Fresno wasn't want to implement the program that, obviously help the homeless population and the city. What was the reason? Just didn't want to do it, or?
I didn't hear the first part of the question. I'm sorry.
Well, you were talking about how the city of Fresno was against these programs for the drop-in center for the homeless and the emergency shelter program. What was your reasoning?
Well, their reasoning is this, gracefully enough, that if they offer services to, and I heard this earlier today, if they offer these kinds of valuable services to people, they will flock to Fresno from all over to come and get these services. I know, it's laughable, but that's their reasoning. I also heard from some people that they don't want any encampments. They don't want anything like that, and they also believe that the Poverello house is part of the problem. They think that if the Poverello house was gone, that then the homeless would disappear. And obviously, it took the encampments out, and they didn't disappear. They're now roam around Fresno. They're on every street corner, just about all over town, and that's actually raised awareness a lot more in a terrible way. Mm-hmm.
Do you know the last election, this week we passed the election in Modesto, and 3 or 4 city council persons running. One of the candidates against the incumbent of Modesto mayor, Mr. David Lopez, he mentioned in his campaign, in his answering question in the forum before, that he's going to request, if he become a mayor, he's going to request to make an ordinance to take it to give every police or whoever stop the homeless to give it, asking question where you coming from. You come from Fresno, whatever. You give a ticket, you go back to.
Yeah, when you were born, yeah, I heard that.
Yes, and to me, it's very incredible because almost nobody hasn't said nothing against that because that's really a violation of your civil rights.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
At the same time, it's a person already running for a mayor to say that in front of everybody to me.
Yeah, yeah.
It don't make sense, really.
Right, no sense.
It's not a solution. This is creating more problem in making the city undesirable for homeless to come or to live. Not thinking that in the next 3 or more years somebody is going to come be every year homeless for any reason
Right.
we have in our life.
Yeah, and solves nothing. One of our city council persons just wrote an op-ed piece just not too long ago saying he was dividing the homeless population into the homeless and vagrants and saying the vagrants were the real problem and if we got rid of them, and I was tempted that I was thinking of, oh, what are we going to do, put yellow stars on people and say you're homeless, no, and you're vagrant, and what's this leading to? It's like we're getting towards, it's starting to look like the final solution here. It's pretty scary, some of the solutions that people think is going to help the situation.
First the homeless, next the immigrants.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's always punitive, it seems like. In this whole article, I didn't hear anything about more housing and really helping people and that kind of thing. But any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.